Folks, I am delighted to welcome Kyle Bonde to the Preconstruction podcast.
Great to be here.
I've been chasing Kyle, I would safely say 18 months. I've been kind of, not chasing you, but just watching your career, seeing your interactions on LinkedIn, kind of seeing you move away from the senior estimator role into this corporate technology role. But before we get into that in great detail, let's take us all the way back. Why construction?
Well, so how I got into it, I was actually in Scouts. So Scouts is a great opportunity. I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life growing up until Scouts. So Scouts, the cool thing about Scouts is you learn to be a leader, life skills, and to graduate Scouts, the final thing you have to become an Eagle Scout. It's called. You have to do an Eagle Scout project. So what that entails is you got to do about 100 hours of service. So the project I chose, it was in our small town near Strand, Minnesota, 210 people. The playground was in horrible shape. So that was our project. We were going to fix up the playground. And it was like on dirt. There's a thing called a band shelter. You know what a band shelter is? It's a Minnesota term for a stage. The thing needed paint and CMU block. So to do this, we needed materials. So I went to the local builder custom home place called River City Builders. The guy's name was Peter. So walked in there, asked them, "Hey, would you donate supplies for this project? We want to fix up this playground." He said absolutely. He was like, "All right." So got the supplies, got the community together, finished the project. It was just awesome. And that's the moment when I realized, wow, this is really cool. When standing back after it was completed, it was just great. And then, so a couple months later, he walked in. I was sitting at the gas station, my first job, making $5.25 an hour. I just got a quarter raise. But Peter walks in, the owner of the custom home place. He's like, "Hey, Kyle, do you want to do construction? He'll pay me a lot more, and I get to work outside and learn it." And of course, I said, "Heck yeah!" And I've done that ever since, and it made the decision easy. Man, I got to go to school for this. Yeah, so here I am.
Is the playground still standing?
It's kind of sad. They remodeled it and they got a super modern one. I mean, it's been like 30 years. But
they remodeled it properly then.
Yeah, they moved the site and everything.
You patched it up. Brilliant. And then, obviously, that was your decision. That you had made the decision. Right, construction is my. Then, obviously, you went and got your education. Talk to us then what happened after the education. You speak highly of internships and the importance of internships.
Yeah, so I went to UW Stout, great program. I mean, just to get your foot in the door, you got to learn the basics. But one thing they really emphasized was internships. So I actually did 3 internships, but two of them were 6 months, so it took me 5 years to graduate. That's all right. But the first internship I had, and this is where I would learn where technology and people play a big role in construction, right? So first internship, we had a total station, and we would do layout. It was really archaic total station, right? It was like all there was nothing digital on it. It was all analog, right? The dials and stuff. So we would shoot distances and turn 90s to layout footings. It worked great. That's all I knew. That's what we were doing. Cool. So 3 months later, same company, we would do the same. 30 miles away. It was cool. I got to be on 2 jobs as an intern. They had a total station that actually had digital, and it actually had a data collector, and you could see what you're doing, and they were radial staking. And this was for the same company. I'm like, why is that? It was simple in my head at the time. They have the technology, and they can be more efficient with their tools. So now here's where the interesting part comes in. I worked for a different company. This project was a casino project, a gaming project. Gaming projects apparently they have more money to spend on technology, but we got the top of the line total station, only needed 1 person. I was stoked because I knew how to use it on my last internship, right? But guess you can imagine what happens. The intern, I got a field engineer superintendent there's like, "No, put it in manual mode, turn 90s, shoot distances." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" No. That's.
So here's one. Did you convince them to use it properly?
It took the end of my internship, and we finally got there. I was so excited, but it took. I was like pushing rockets uphill.
So that was your first accomplishment in pre-con tech, and you didn't even know it. So then, obviously, you finished your internships. Why did you start in the dark side? Why did you go to operations? Because you've spent half your career in operations, half now in pre-construction. Was it just to learn, to develop? Was it something that maybe college kind of forced you into, or that's all that was taught during your construction management degree?
That's exactly it. I didn't even know pre-construction existed. I was like, oh, this is the way I need to go into operations and do the standard FEP, OEPEAS role. And I didn't even know that existed until I became an office engineer. Then I was pricing change orders, and I'm like, I'm really good at this. I actually started working with the estimated department. Oh, what's this cool tool called OST? Because I was like measuring stuff in Adobe Acrobat. It was horrible trying to price change orders with no tools that weren't good for me. But then I started like, holy cow, I really like pricing things. I really like quantifying scope. I really like thinking about all these things, creating the scope for these change orders. And that's when I'm like, hey, can I go to estimating? I kept asking. It took like 3 years. But,
is that right?
But yeah.
3 years. And estimators, crying out for estimators too.
Well, funny story. My boss who's here, Ryan, he was I was sitting in a conference room. We were all huddled around the Cisco phones, right? We didn't have Teams back then. But he comes on the phone, he did a shout out to the world. He's like, guys, we need estimators. If you're the type of person that wants to improve things, we need you here. I'm just like, yeah.
Straight away, yeah, 100%. And I mean, your skill set obviously lay towards estimating, but you got the operations experience. How important was that operations experience now, obviously, in your new role when it comes to estimating and the pre-contact side?
Oh, it's so. I mean, I listen to your podcast all the time. Everybody says the similar things. It's so critical to understand, to be able to visualize it. I'm a really visual person, and to be able to work with the craft, man. One of the things that I really appreciated was working with the craft, because we self-perform a lot of concrete. It was one of the first projects I was on, and once I saw that bond that we formed, it made me really want to take a unique approach in pre-construction to go after self-work projects, different aspects. Like we do caissons, we do gaping walls, we've done installing windows. I kind of take it to the next level, things we typically don't do, because self-work's key, and I learned that in operations.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you're senior estimator now, you've been in that role for quite a while. How did it come about? How did the corporate technology role come about? I mean, obviously, Hensel Phelps saw something in you to be able to say, Kyle is the guy to spearhead this.
Well, like when I came into pre-construction, for example, the first thing I did was, hey guys, look at this tool called Bluebeam. We could hyperlink and bookmark drawings to really navigate plans, because we were printing out plans when I came in. I'm like, what? But now we've evolved past that. So I just kind of kept that going, and then they actually asked me officially, hey, they did a call out to all the regions. Hey, who's interested in pushing technology forward? Kyle, we think it's you. But I kind of was going back and forth. I'm like, I really want to be a senior estimator. I don't want to get to, because it was a promotion involved too with the technology role. And I was like, man, I really want to be known as a senior estimator, not, hey, Kyle got promoted because he knows technology. I kind of looked at that as a downside in my con list. But it was like, it's like my superpower. And I didn't realize it at the time. Like, I could look at any tool that's out there and be like, nope, that's not going to fit in our workflows at all. Like, guys, don't waste your time. Let's next.
And that's the problem, right? When speaking to GCs here now, and you see, we saw the kind of exhibition center in there. There's pre-construction tools everywhere, point solutions. How do you navigate that? Because I mean, did you have to literally, obviously understand the processes, understand how Hensel Phelps actually work within pre-construction estimating, and then find a tool that works for you? Is that the basis of it, or is it a case of you find a problem and you go and find a tool, or did you make a tool internally?
Well, it's kind of a mix of all of what you just said. Like, the first thing that comes to mind is you got to know the process, and process in my mind is the workflow, because some people define process a little different. Some people are like, process is cut the board. Well, no. In my mind, the process is you got to measure it, cut it. You know, you got to do multiple steps. And that term we use at our company called the workflow. So if you really know your workflow, and then you go out and check out the tools of what are they using, how could we apply this to our workflow, that's how you can maybe gain headway with using this different technology.
Yeah. And what's the tech stack look like right now, and then how's it evolving? Like in your mind, by the sounds of things, you kind of think into the future. What's it going to look like? What's it look like now? So what is the tech stack within pre-construction? What's it going to look like in 5 years?
Well, I can go through ours real quick. Just our current tech stack. So we use OST for takeoff, building connected for solicitations, Excel for various tools like GCs, GRs, OST. We use Sage. We use Excel for bid leveling. Same thing with trends. Cortex for project history. There's a ton of tools out there, right? So, to your question, well, what's next? Well, I can get into kind of what tools we're looking at and what I'm excited about, but one of the big themes that I'm seeing is web-based takeoff tools. If you can imagine this. So, think of Procore, right? Procore, they had a need for RFIs and submittals, and now everybody and their brothers latch it on to Procore because they integrate because it's a web-based tool. Great, well that's in the construction space. Well, the pre-construction space, they don't have a tool like that. We need a tool that we could really wrap our arms around. Like, think about it like this. Why am I going into OST, making a project, titling it something, and then I got to go into my estimate platform, make a project, title the project name, and then I got to go to my bid leveling tool, make a project. I mean, this doesn't make sense to me. Why isn't there a central hub where I go to access all my information, all my drawings? Like we waste a lot of time just double entering data, which that's what this web-based integration, I see that's going to happen. There's going to be a publicly traded pre-construction tool soon.
Yeah, I agree with you. You can see them all in there. They're vying for it, and they're at the early stages, a lot of them. Nobody's got it right just yet, but there's quite a lot. It's all single point solutions. And where do you see it like a Procore? I mean, I've had the Procore chief product guy on. We've had the guys from Destiny. We've had the guys from Concentric. Is there any? You mentioned there that you've kind of reviewed quite a few of them. Which one excites you the most?
Well, to be honest, Edify is the one that's really one we've been kicking around that has the potential to. We're gonna be looking at it, which I'm excited about. There's a lot of tools like that that's web-based. They have a need, might be able to deploy this web-based vision that could happen someday. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah. Well, we're having the Edify guys on later on, so we're recording that tomorrow afternoon, but so we'll get back to you on that. And then it's interesting, we were speaking earlier, right? So a lot of these construction companies now, they're putting a huge focus on technology, being able to do what you do, so do estimating 50% of the time, and then spend 50% of your time looking at workflow and what technologies are out there. How difficult is it navigating that market when you think about the options out there? What's the single most important thing for you or for Hensel Phelps?
Oh man, because there's so much stuff out there. You really have to understand the why and the problem. The vendors are really great about asking that, and if you don't understand that yourself and you get buy-in from leadership and people around you, like, it's not going to go anywhere. Back to my story about the layout people, you got to have the people bought in. The technology is like ready, in my opinion. Like, for example, Creo and Toggle for takeoff. Like, that's ready. I've kicked it around so much. I'm like, guys, whenever we're ready to pilot, let's go, because we need to give the tools to our people.
Yeah, and is that buy-in from leadership? Is that budget? What's the biggest? I mean, you mentioned there the people. I mean, you're probably I'm 41. I mean, I've been brought up in technology. So if you're bringing an estimator or a pre-construction manager around our age or younger, I mean, they're used to doing everything on their phone. They're used to the digital way of doing things. So it shouldn't be any different when you're coming to construction and coming to your job to do your pre-construction or estimating.
Yeah, it's got to come from both top down and bottom up is like the best way to do it. Because I've had it where I've tried to force a tool from the bottom up and it kind of didn't work. And then there's also been the same way top down, and that didn't work too well. You got to come from both directions. And that
is that part of your role now? Is that kind of figuring out what the leadership, the C-suite guys are looking for, what you'll get sign off for? and then delivering it to your team and getting buy-in from them.
Yeah, I'm like so spoiled. I get to talk to every chief estimator in every region. Like I have direct access to them. I'm like so lucky. And then I'm the Sage company-wide trainer. Sage is a great tool, and I get all the folks who have business specific questions, and they bounce ideas off them. When I get a call from somebody who needs a question that like a senior estimator or a lead estimator, like that, I drop everything and help them, because I'm like, that's my number one priority, is to help those folks with their challenge, whatever they're up against that day.
And are you seeing from all the offices and all the chief estimators, are you seeing the same problems, or is it a case of regionally they're all different?
Well, like some regions, they just do hard bid. They have a lot of hard bid, and it's really hard to, like, how, because utopia is we all do the same thing and everything works great, like operations. But the clients are asking way different things from us in other locations. This region's doing hard bid, this one's doing more iterative GMP type estimating. It's like, how do we merge those two together under one company? That's the big challenge we're up against, because we have 13 offices all over the place. And we're trying to figure it out like everyone else.
And not only that, from different regions, and then you've got all the data from doing, like if you do a hospital in one region and you've got a hospital in another region, you've got to be able to grab that data, centralize it, and then use it, whether it be for a client or for the actual project. How do you manage that, the data topic?
Well, that's the beautiful thing. That's one of our corporate strategies is data. So there's a whole team formed onto it where they're trying to solve this for kind of every piece of construction, but there's a huge focus on it. We have a dedicated data person on our estimating technology team, and I'm kind of in that world too, because we all want to go into a line item and see and click. Like I saw this with Innate. This is one of the, when I see demos like this and I see this kind of stuff, I see why data is super important. So Innate, I did a demo. We were doing, okay, look at the glass item. They right-clicked on it, right when we were entering the quantities, right-click on it. It shows this beautiful graph, escalated to time and location, what exactly unit price you should use, and it was giving you recommendations right there. I'm like, I want that. We need to make that.
Very good. And are they a real option for you? Could you see yourself going with Innate?
It's, to be honest, it's more of a self-work tool. And more for the civil world, so we're not putzing around with it by any means.
And it's really difficult, especially when data's flowing downstream, even in the operations. How do you get it back upstream? And how difficult is it when you've got different, you're running project management on a different tool, and you're running pre-construction on a different tool? I mean, the ideal world will be all run together.
Yeah, we haven't figured that out. Period. I mean, even in our own pre-construction group, sometimes, like if it's a hard bid job, we use Excel. I mean, we don't make an estimate prior to that. But if it's a GMP job, we do it in Sage, and we actually have access to that data. But if it's a hard bid job, we have that tool problem, like you just mentioned.
Yeah. And then, of course, every project you're getting different data, and then that data's just lost. I mean, the thing it gets me exciting, right? Obviously, I'm in the people side of things, right? I like to think that the structure of a pre-construction team will be very different in 3 or 4 years. I think you're going to have BIM VDC modelers within the team, you're going to have data engineers, you're going to have pre-con managers, and then you're going to have traditional estimators. That to me, and there's companies out there doing that right now, that to me is the perfect team. Like, listen, you throw another kind of person in there, but that to me is the foundation.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that. Like our VDC department, we're starting to collaborate with them more in estimating, and I see that trend happening too. The estimating role, like, I don't like the term estimator that much. I'm like, I sit in the corner and count things. I'm like, that is not at all what we do. I'm like, we're pre-construction managers is what we are. I mean, period, and that's where I see it headed. And you mentioned something, like you're in the people business, right? So you're like hire folks. I saw you on a webinar the other day, and you mentioned something that I wanted to ask you about. So, how often does people ask you, what's the GC's tech stack? Like, did the younger folks care? Do they?
Yeah. So there's. I love this. So this has changed now. I'm getting interviewed, folks. This is the Kyle Bonde podcast. So yeah, they always ask. I mean, one of the first questions. There's kind of two. We do polls on this all the time. So we poll estimators, pre-construction managers, anybody from 1 year's experience up to 25 years experience. There's two things they look for: flexibility and tech stack. That's the two biggest questions. They say, right, you're telling me that A, B, C, and D are hiring at my level, and I should look at them. Why? And I have to go through the tech stack with them. I obviously have to find out what the tech stack they're using at the moment. If they're using a tech stack that maybe this company is implementing, then they're going to add way more value, and it's going to be really good for them. But that is one of the big. I mean, you can talk about technology stack, pre-construction technology, on how much it's doing for the actual existing team. But see, as a recruitment tool, it is massively valuable. Like if they turn around to me, a GC turned around to me mid-size and turned to me saying, we're using Excel for everything. Like somebody who's used to using a web server, a web browser, they're looking to use digital, it's going to be a very difficult transition, and you're going to find it very difficult to sell them that opportunity. So to answer your question, it's tough, you know, and they're smart. These young kids, they're tech savvy. They want to use technology. They don't want to be going home using technology and then going to work and using a pencil and a pen.
Yeah, and I see the same thing too. Like we get folks from operations, because we try and get folks in operations and get them to come into estimating. But I've talked to a few of them, and I get really disappointed when they say, Kyle, I don't know if I want to be here because we do a lot of data entry. And that just drives me nuts, because that's the thing that drives me, is how can we get our workflows better? How can we not do double entries? How do we, because we're creative people, we have problems to solve. We need to be doing more with our time than data entry.
Yeah, well, that's just not high level. I mean, the estimators and pre-construction managers get paid a lot of money. You're paying data entry for someone, and I'm not talking about all the time, but if they're doing data entry 30% of the time, you break that down to salary, that's a big outlay across maybe 6 or 7 members of a team. So they need to be doing the value engineering, the high level stuff, the coordination, the storytelling when it comes to clients, architects, subcontractors, engaging with subcontractors. It's the stuff that, as you say, is the reason that you get into pre-construction and estimating. You want to be doing that work, and this is the problem. If I tell a good mid-level estimator with 5 or 6 years experience that there's a great opportunity over in this GC, but you're going to be doing data entry for 50%, 60% of your time, they're not going to want to go. It's not going to be a goer. And what really excites me and is the young pre-construction services, technology-focused companies that are coming up now. Now, they're not going to eat the big boys' dinner or lunch. They're going to see the mid-tier companies that aren't looking at technology, that aren't improving, aren't evolving, aren't moving forward. They are going to get eaten alive by these young companies, because these young companies are hiring pre-construction managers. They're giving them the tech tools to do the basics and the heavy lifting, and the pre-con managers are excelling, and they're doing the really value-added stuff.
Yeah, and like I've been on a couple design build projects, and man, I just love that. They're my favorite projects. You're making these suggestions. You're working with trade partners. You're kicking around ideas. Like for example, we had stucco on one of the first projects I did. We kicked around. Well, you have to do 3 inches of insulation to do the energy code, and then you have this heavy, 3/4 inch stucco on the outboard side. I'm like, how does this make sense? So we kicked around ideas, and we ended up going with EFIS, and turned out to be a beautiful thing, and we ended up finding a great contractor to work with on the next job for a trade partner. Just things like these, story after story I could tell on things that we looked at all these options, this was the best thing, save time, save cost, It's just so fun doing those types of creative knowledge gathering, problem solving.
Well, this is it. You have to get a community. You have to be part of a community. If there's any pre-construction manager, estimator out there that's not part of a pre-construction community, then they're missing out, because you can't wait to advance in pre-construction or pre-con world. Once a year they ask the questions that you need answered. There has to be something that's quite instantaneous. So if you can get into a community that has 50, 60, even 200 similar level people within pre-construction estimate, a vetted community, then you can ask that question and get an answer within an hour. That's what we need.
We have a group of 50 tech forward folks all across the regions. We have Teams chats, and we ask questions on there all the time and keep in communication. It's a wonderful thing in our internal group.
Brilliant, yeah. So Kyle, back to you. what excites you? What gets you up in the morning when you talk about this corporate technology role that you're coming? What most excites you?
I mean, to be honest, it's improving our people's time so they can spend time doing on the things to be creative, like we just hit on. That's like my number one driving force, and not just our people, like the industry. How can we help improve the industry? Like I'm working with all these technology vendors. I'm not holding back. I'm like, hey guys, we got to make this better. Here's my workflow. How can you make it better? Does it work well with other GCs too? Let's go, right? We're here to help build a better world.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, and again, it's retaining your talent that you have as well. I mean, if they see like a couple of technology tools coming in and basically making their job easier, they're going to say this is the best company in the world to live with. And I know you guys are doing that. Before we finish, go ahead. Have you another?
Well, people are so hard to find. I get headhunter calls all the time. It's just like we need to. Pre-construction is just a hard thing to find, because it's not advertised very well either.
The other thing that you mentioned as well on the operations side, I see the really good companies are picking out their best operations people and bringing them into pre-construction. So I know you mentioned that before. I think people don't use that enough of as a recruitment tool in pre-construction. The project engineers, the APMs, the superintendents, if you can bring them into pre-construction, it's a serious ad.
Yeah, we have such a sweet marketing team. We got to do a better job internally.
Right. Do it there, you are. You head that up too then? As if you haven't got enough to do? Yeah. Well, listen, before we go, I want to thank you as well. So you were the person that actually nominated Alex Arnold for the free ticket to Advancing Pre-Construction. So thank you for that. We're going to catch up with Alex later on, and I'm sure we'll get a beer with him later on as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great program, you guys. I nominated a bunch of my team, and you picked Alex for some reason.
Very good.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, listen, Kyle, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome.